I put everything into this relationship. I have done nothing to your mom. I've never hit her. I've never hurt her. I've never called her names. A couple of times when I got really mad, I would say a bad word or something, but I've done everything I can. I haven't done anything wrong. I'm like, why me? I'm so sorry.
What you've just seen is part of a video posted to YouTube by 48-year-old Trent Paschal on October 21st, 2020, moments before he murdered his wife, 30-year-old Savannah Paschal. Trent had spent years gushing about his wife's beauty on social media, but this particular video had an altogether different tone and message. Amidst apologies to his daughter, Trent explained to anybody and nobody that he had been a good husband, but one who had been played for a fool. If there was anyone who should be blamed for the horror he was about to unleash, it was his wife, Savannah. She had, after all, brought it upon herself. Welcome to Fear Files, where we discuss and dissect the most mysterious, terrifying, and mind-bending cases from all over the world. Before we get started, we would like to send our deepest sympathies to the loved ones of Savannah Paschal, who fell victim to the abominable acts described in this case. A stone's throw away from the city of Houston, Texas, is a small town called Lamarck, located on the edge of Galveston Bay on the Gulf of Mexico. The Lamarck City Council will tell you that life here is good. Residents can enjoy easy breezy coastal living with a relaxed lifestyle and plenty of fishing and coastal walks, and only the occasional home invasion or other petty crime, courtesy of the city's unusually high crime rate. But the crime that occurred on Hawksview Drive in October of 2020 and the year-long events that would follow it would make home robberies and other crimes in Lamarck pale in comparison. On the morning of October 21st, 2020, Donald Riddick heard the sounds of a heated argument coming from a spacious brick house located across the street from his. The home was at 400 Hawksview Drive and was that of 30-year-old Savannah and 48-year-old Trent Paschal, as well as their two children, William, aged 11, and Mackenzie, 7. Riddick had known the family for years. Their children were similar in age and had often played together on the street. While the voices coming from the house were quite clearly those of Savannah and Trent, it struck Riddick as unusual. He had never heard the couple argue before, let alone loud enough for passers-by to hear. Soon afterwards, Trent stormed out of the house and drove away in his pickup truck. Savannah followed shortly afterwards, heading to the home of a neighbor before returning back to the house. She would return at midday, this time with her mother. But by then, no one in the neighborhood was watching the house, and no one had any idea of the horrors that were about to unfold there. Savannah Kinchin Paschal had moved to the house several years earlier with her husband Trent Paschal. Born in Pasadena, Texas in 1990, growing up, Savannah had been a talented gymnast, dancer, and ice skater, and also an enthusiastic horseback rider. Her love of animals had led her to consider a career as a veterinarian. After graduating high school, she had taken up volunteer work at a vet clinic. But observing close up the suffering of the wounded or dying animals had caused a change of heart in Savannah. She decided instead to pursue a culinary career. She had scarcely started down her new career path when her life had taken an unexpected turn. Savannah was pregnant, and when the relationship with the child's father broke down, she found herself a single mom at the age of 19. For years, Savannah embraced the role of being a single mom to baby William. Later, she would find herself a lucrative new career goal, that of a funeral director. Savannah had the right temperament for working with the bereaved. A gentle touch and a natural tact. She knew just what to say and had no issues working with the dead. Life was heading in the right direction for Savannah, it seemed, and even more so when she met then 40-year-old Trent Paschal. Savannah was just 22. But Trent had his own successful contracting business and, with 18 years of extra life experience, had a comforting wisdom and a take-charge confidence that felt reassuring to Savannah. He was also smitten with the young woman, making her feel appreciated in a way that no one else ever had. There were a few small things that troubled her, his temper, for instance, and his jealousy. Occasionally, his confidence veered into arrogance, and his protectiveness felt a little like dominance. But despite her reservations, the couple married after just several months of dating, and by a year later, baby Mackenzie was born. Looking at their Facebook profiles, theirs looked like a very happy marriage. Both profiles are full of images of them as a couple, with captions such as, "I have such a beautiful wife." One picture contains the words "forever" and "always," and "Thanks, babe, I love you so much." In 2018, Trent wrote, "Well, I'm happy Savannah still has the curves since she lost all the weight. Love you, Savannah." The reality, though, was very different, much more like the playbook of a toxic and abusive relationship. From the earliest days of their relationship, Trent had begun to restrict the people that Savannah saw, at first by questioning their characters, then by outright belittling her poor judgment in friends. A night out would be followed by sulking and intimations that she wasn't a good mother. Money became his domain and another form of control. Savannah was putting in long hours working at the mortuary while studying to become a funeral director. Every penny she earned was handed over to Trent. He didn't trust banks, so he kept the money in cash at their home. Savannah was given an allowance. He decided the amount and doled it out accordingly. Even with absolute control over her money and free time, however, Trent was still plagued by feelings of insecurity. He became convinced that his younger wife would someday leave him for another man. He took to texting multiple times an hour, asking her to prove her locations. He criticized her for wearing makeup and accused her of deliberately dressing to attract male attention. If she spoke to another man, he accused her of flirting and would show up at her workplace unannounced. Once, he discovered photos she had kept from her prom with an old boyfriend and had her tear them up. A predictable pattern of explosive fights followed by heartfelt reconciliations began. Trent had a frightening temper. During fights, Savannah would often retreat until he'd calmed down. Afterwards, he would apologize with flowers and gifts and passionately proclaim his love for her. During particularly bad fights, Savannah would call her mom Shirley for support. Trent took to restraining her from doing this. Later, knowing she would have told her mom what had happened, he'd phone Shirley to give his own version of the story. Savannah's parents watched the relationship with grim alarm. It had been obvious to them from the earliest days of their relationship that Trent had an unhealthy need to control and dominate. They had advised her to leave him. Savannah had agreed, but had fallen deeper into the relationship the longer it went on. Their fights were terrible, she admitted, but when things were good, they were amazing. That cycle, as is often the case, was only ever going to end badly. Only just how badly, no one could have imagined in their worst nightmares. And Trent was on the brink of losing control. By the autumn of 2020, the pandemic had disrupted Trent's contracting business to the point where his once multi-million-dollar company was earning less money for the family than his wife's job at a funeral parlor. The loss of status for Trent was intolerable, and his obsessive ruminations and creeping sense of losing control over Savannah reached new heights. Ironically, Savannah was slipping away. By October 2020, with Trent in control of almost every aspect of her life, Savannah had decided that she wanted out. It had been an awakening regarding domestic violence and her own status as a victim of it. Savannah had been helping raise money for victims of domestic violence. Her most recent post on Facebook from October of 2020 was a fundraiser for a domestic violence shelter. At work, we are partnering with the Bay Area Turning Point to collect items for women and children escaping domestic violence. We are a drop-off location, or you can bring them to me and I'll take them to work, now until October 25th, she wrote. Savannah was emotionally and psychologically well on her way out of the marriage. For Trent, with his limited understanding of human nature, he simply ramped up his efforts to control Savannah and installed an app on her phone that enabled him to listen to her phone calls. One evening, shortly after he'd begun listening to her calls, Savannah phoned her parents to tell them that she intended to divorce him. They warned her not to confront him, but to simply leave while he was out of the house. She insisted on having an honest and frank conversation with him. After all, she said, she owed him that much. On the morning of October 21st, Savannah broke the news to Trent that she didn't want to live with him anymore. Their conversation rapidly deteriorated into a shouting match. Trent left the house and, distraught, Savannah went to a neighbor's before returning to get her car and head to her mother's. Trent had returned to the house not long afterwards. He had made his decision and had one final task to take care of before moving ahead with his plan. He needed to record a message and post it publicly, a message that would sully his wife's reputation and hopefully salvage his own after what he was about to do. Most of the 4.5-minute long ramble that was later posted to YouTube is addressed to the daughter he shared with Savannah. He might have posted it privately to her, but instead he chose YouTube. His real audience was the general public. The key takeaway was that there was only one victim here, and it was not Savannah, but him, Trent Paschal.
I didn't choose this. Your mom chose this. She's been cheating on me for a long time. I have audio of her talking to other guys. I didn't do nothing wrong to her. When we first got together, I told her, "You're too young for me." There's an 18-year-old difference in her age, and I knew she was kind of too young, but I didn't. She's been playing me for a fool. I told her not to mess with me, not to mess with my emotions. Don't play with me. I got an audio where she was calling a guy yesterday on her way to get her eyelashes done, and she said, "Hey, baby," and he goes, "Hey," and I was like, "That's not my voice. Why is she calling somebody else baby?" Then she started talking about a dream and everything, and she had with them too about sex and everything. And I put everything into this relationship. I have done nothing to your mom. I've never hit her. I've never hurt her. I've never called her names. A couple of times when I got really mad, I would say a bad word or something, but I've done everything I can. I haven't done anything wrong. I'm like, why me? My hair's a mess and I look horrible. Oh, sorry. Take these off.
When Savannah and her mother pulled up at the house several hours later, they had no idea that Trent was still filming his pre-murder confession. He would see them via the home's security cameras, and when they were just steps away from the front door, he abruptly stopped filming. He then fumbles with the phone before scurrying out of the room in order to wait in ambush in the bathroom shower cubicle.
I love you, Mackenzie. I love you so much. Please do something good with your life. Please do something really good, because you deserve a good life. And I don't know what else to say. I'm so sorry I don't have better words right now. I'm hurting so bad. I provided what I could. I've done what I could for her. I've done nothing but good for her. And I've treated y'all good. I've done good things for y'all. And I don't know what else to say. I love you, Mackenzie. I love you so much. Do something good with your life. Make me proud. Make me very proud. And Mom, I love you. You've been the angel through my whole life, taking care of me. Anyways, Mom, I love you so much. You're my angel. I love you. You mean everything to me. And Dad, you've done a lot for me too. And you've taken care of me. You raised me good. You've done whatever you could. Thank you. I appreciate that. I love you so much. You love me like your own.
Shortly after Savannah and Shirley entered the house, Shirley excused herself to go to the bathroom, choosing the suite off the master bedroom. Like a reverse scene from Psycho, no sooner had she closed the door than Trent emerged from behind the shower curtain, pointing a shotgun at her. Trent spoke just a few chilling words before unleashing his wrath. "I'm going to kill both you and then Savannah," he said, and then he opened fire. His opening shots missed Shirley, blew a hole in the tile wall instead. Shirley fled from the room, slamming the bathroom door behind her before managing to get out the front door, tripping several times in her efforts to reach safety. She'd nearly covered the stretch of lawn leading to a neighbor's house when she heard the harrowing gunshots reverberating through the streets. While the neighbors phoned police, Shirley watched Trent emerge from the front door, his mobile pressed to his ear. The neighbor captured him on his phone. He had just proven to Savannah who ultimately held the power, and he wanted to share the news with someone. He had called Savannah's aunt to tell her that he had just murdered her niece. He then got into his Chevrolet Colorado pickup truck and drove away. Stricken with dread, Shirley now re-entered the home. On the living room floor, she found her dying daughter, bleeding profusely from gunshot wounds to her abdomen. An ambulance would transport her to the hospital, where she would later be pronounced dead. Trent Paschal's truck was spotted by police in Houston, north of the home in Lamarck, 45 minutes later, where he was pulled over and surrounded. But Trent had no intentions of relinquishing control or being forced to face someone else pulling the strings. Why change the habit of a lifetime? As he stepped out of the truck, he pulled a gun from his waistband. Officers issued him warnings, which he responded to by pointing the weapon directly at them. Trent was shot in the arm, leg, and torso before being detained and cuffed. He was transported to a nearby hospital in critical but stable condition.
Investigators say the man shot was on the run, accused of killing his estranged wife. The murder investigation began earlier today in Lamarck. The deputy-involved shooting happened tonight in the parking lot of a Walmart off the North Freeway and West Road, just south of the North Belt.
There is still a heavy law enforcement presence out here right now. Excuse me, and you can see it right behind me. Most of their focus has been back on that side of the parking lot. You can see a car and a truck back there. A lot of deputies looking over there as part of their investigation. As you were mentioning before, Harris County deputies were looking for the murder suspect out of Lamarck, and they ended up here at this Walmart after getting information that that person might be here. Now, when deputies spotted him in a different car, they then pursued that vehicle as it was heading back to what they believe was the suspect's car. They had ordered the suspect to get out. They said he had a gun, ordered him to drop the gun, but he didn't do so, and that's when he was shot by a deputy out here, shot several times and taken to the hospital. He's in last check critical but stable condition.
Here's where things get even more messed up. 6 weeks later, having been lawfully and dutifully returned back to health, Trent was released from the hospital and taken into custody at the Harris County Jail for the murder of his wife. But Trent was charged with felony murder, which made him eligible for bail. In the state of Texas, anyone other than those charged with capital murder are deemed eligible for bail. Trent's bail was set at $450,000, and he was bailed out that very night by family members. Just weeks after murdering his wife, Trent was back enjoying his life on the streets of Lamarck. He did have several conditions attached to his bond. He had to wear an ankle monitor at all times, and to not leave the county, and to stay at his mother's home from 6 a.m. until 6 p.m., and limit his movements to the store and his lawyer's office. Soon after being released, he violated the terms of his agreement by missing a court appearance. Shortly afterwards, he violated the terms a second time with a traffic infraction. On a third occasion, he was caught with different vehicle license plates on his car and had 3 more in the back seat. On all 3 occasions, his bond was not revoked, and he remained a free man. He even became so blasé that he posted images of himself on weekend getaways at Galveston Bay to his social media accounts. It was the 4th violation that prompted court officials to finally revoke his bond, but by then, it would be too late. On April 13, 2021, a small car dealership in Houston reported that one of their vehicles had been stolen at knife point. A salesman had been accompanying a man on a test drive in a black Chevy Tahoe when the man pulled over at a gas station, withdrew a knife, and ordered the salesman out of the vehicle. He then drove off in the SUV. The dealership owner hadn't taken a copy of the man's ID before allowing him to test drive the vehicle and was unable to provide police with any identity when reporting the threat. He did, however, post stills on his company's social media account of the man captured on their CCTV footage. In the comments, several people commented that the man looked uncannily like Trent Paschal, the man who had slaughtered his wife the previous October and whose face had been splashed all over the news. It was only when Trent missed another court appearance, however, that officers dropped by the house to arrest him that the shocking truth was revealed. There, on the floor, not attached to any human being, let alone Trent, was an empty, semi-destroyed ankle monitor. Trent and his stolen SUV were long gone.
This week marks 8 months since a 30-year-old mother of 2 was killed in her Lamarck home. U.S. Marshals say Savannah Paschal was shot by her husband, Trent. After a standoff with deputies, he was shot but survived and arrested, later bonding out of jail.
We don't feel that he should have been let out on bond again and again and again.
It's been a heartbreaking and frustrating 8 months for Savannah's family, made even worse after Paschal skipped bond back in April.
He has been in custody 3 separate times in the first 6 months after our daughter was killed. We warned them time and time again, don't let him back out.
You don't just vanish off the face of the earth.
Officer Chase Hunt with the U.S. Marshal Service is leading the manhunt.
The guy stands out. He's very arrogant and cocky. He's going to be out there. He's, in my opinion, a womanizer.
Officer Hunt says Paschal was last seen leaving his mother's house riding a scooter, not driving the SUV he's accused of stealing at knife point from a car dealership. Hunt thinks he's close.
My guess would be a hotel, shacked up with somebody that just hasn't seen the news.
Right now, there are no new leads.
We're on a constant state of alert. We never let the children out of our sight. We don't know what to expect, when to expect it, or where to expect it.
Paschal's bond has been revoked, and Hunt says his mother is now the victim there.
Trent, if you're out there and you're listening, you're letting your mom lose her house, and your stepdad, they took care of you their whole life, and you're going to let them lose their house, you're going to let them lose everything because you don't want to be a man and turn yourself in.
After a lengthy 9-month-long investigation and manhunt, police received a tip that Trent Paschal was sleeping in a van at an RV park in Florida. Police located Trent in the RV park in a stolen van on New Year's Eve 2021. As they surrounded the vehicle, a single gunshot rang out. In control until the end, at any cost, Trent Paschal had shot himself, denying Savannah's parents the opportunity to confront their daughter's killer or to see justice served. Shirley Kinchin later made a long and heartfelt statement to the press. She wanted to see her 48-year-old son-in-law stand trial. She wanted bond reform for Savannah and every other victim out there.
Did I want him to be held responsible for his actions? Did I want to look him in the eye and for him to face me again with what he had done? Yes. Am I sorry that he no longer walks on this earth? No. He is no longer a threat to my family or society. And as Andy said, we don't know who he victimized, how many he victimized. We will continue to honor our daughter's memory by fighting for bond reform and bringing light to a justice system that not only failed us and her children, but so many other victims. And there are many victims. We waited a little over a year. Many people wait decades.
If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like the video, comment down below your take on it, share, and subscribe to the channel. Also, hit the notification bell to stay up to date each time we reveal a new shocking case. If you've got a case you'd like to see given more coverage, drop us a note in the comments. And thank you for your support. We're grateful for every one of our subscribers. So, until next time, stay safe and keep your eyes peeled. You never know what's lurking in the shadows.